Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 9 of No TV. In this episode we talk about rebuttals and why people aren't buying cyber insurance, and we have a guest on the show. Alright everyone, so we have with us a guest today. It's No's first guest. Pretty exciting. We have Mr. Mark Robinson. Mr. Mark Robinson, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from.
I'm Mark Robinson. I'm Managing Director at Henderson Insurance Brokers, and one of my specialisms across the group is cyber insurance, which is what I believe we're going to discuss today.
We are indeed. And I think what's just cool is it's good for us to, Mark works in Leeds and Harrogate and has got a very good knowledge. We've worked together for quite some years, and it's really interesting just to get the retail perspective on kind of how people are getting on with cyber, what businesses are facing, and just really what sort of your experiences and what you think people can do to sort of sell more, really. So I guess we've got some changes coming up in the privacy regulatory framework that we all speak about, and I think that's going to be a big driver, hopefully sort of probably towards the end of this year, people getting ready for that. I guess what's also interesting is what you're doing with your clients to sort of get this on in front of the radar, really.
Yeah. I think one of the big issues, obviously, as you've touched on there, is the lack of sales of cyber liability, and the first thing we as retail brokers have an exposure to is errors and omissions. So this is an issue whereby we either don't discuss the issue of cyber with our clients,
sure,
and therefore it's not on their radar at all, and in the event of a data breach or some sort of cyber loss, the first person that a client will point the finger to is their insurance broker. And obviously if we haven't mentioned that, there's an errors and omission exposure there. Or linked with that is if we missell a cyber policy. So we as brokers, if we don't have an understanding, a correct understanding of the wordings, the heads of cover, and we missell a cyber policy to our client, that can be almost as bad as not selling them a policy at all in the event of an error and omission. So one of the things I've been tasked with across the Henderson Group is to develop a cyber strategy. The number one key point for us is education, and I think that is true across the entire insurance sector for cyber.
So what does that look like? So when you're talking about, is that education internally for your account handlers, or do you mean with the new clients or renewals, or is it a sort of combination?
It's across the board.
Right.
So the first thing we are looking to do is educate within our business.
Yeah.
So this is account handlers, this is our account execs, the sales staff who are going out to speak to the clients. I can say this because I used to be one. Account executives are they're very very structured in what they do. So they will have, or we go into a client and we know how a client meeting is going to run because we'll have gone through that in our head several times.
Yeah.
And rightly or wrongly, there's two types of meeting that account exec goes to. There's a renewal meeting, or there's a new business meeting.
Yeah.
In a renewal meeting, in all honesty, you probably want to get in and out as fast as you can with renewal instructions and try and avoid any questions that's going to throw you off track.
Yep.
And a new business meeting is, again, to get in and out as fast as possible and hopefully win the business.
Sure.
What we try and avoid are any difficult questions that we don't know the answer to.
So just before you go to that, so are you kind of saying, or what I think where you're heading with this, is it likely if the account exec doesn't feel comfortable about talking about the digital risk of the insured or their potential cyber exposure,
it won't be mentioned?
It won't be mentioned.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. So that's where the education comes in. We need to make sure that our guys are educated to the extent that they can be comfortable to go in and have an initial conversation
That's
about
how it starts.
cyber exposure.
Them actually being comfortable.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is your exposure.
That's it, because the issue is, as I say, they're frightened they're going to get asked a question by a client and they don't know the answer to that question, and the credibility goes out the window at that point. So number one is the education piece. So that's a big part of it all. Once they understand the simple heads of cover and how a claim can trigger, then that's half the battle. Because obviously once our staff are educated, the staff can educate our clients. Another issue, and again, a lot of this is sector-wide, is press, UK reporting of cyber incidents. The UK press are getting better at reporting UK-based.
I think it's never been better.
But certainly, you talk about two years ago, even so much as last year. If a client ever asked for an example of a claim, we're pointing them towards
US.
Uber claims, like PlayStation or something that's happened in the US, which is fantastic and frightening, but does that relate to a manufacturing firm, for example?
No,
absolutely not.
No, and I think that failure to resonate with the examples that you're giving them, it's not real to them. If they don't see the worth, they're the consumer, they're the purchaser. If they don't really feel that what you're offering them is relevant to their business, you're never going to see.
That's it. I mean, and it all comes down to the fact that as a sector, brokers and insurers are making it difficult for clients to purchase cyber cover because we're not making it very clear to them. We're not making it clear what it is. It's difficult to obtain or it can be difficult to obtain a quote because of the information that's required.
Are you talking about the size of applications now?
Yeah, exactly. And we still for whatever reason pigeonhole businesses into technology business, manufacturing business. And in all honesty, is there such thing as a technology business anymore, a standalone technology business anymore? Probably not, because all businesses are now technology.
I think so. In some of the earlier videos I've done kind of talk about business where they've gone from non-digital to digital enabled, and I think you're absolutely right that it's very rare that businesses don't do 6 or 7 functions that are all that have a digital risk attached to them, that a cyber insurance policy could help them mitigate risks that are attached to that business activity. And I think you're absolutely right that perhaps the way that people are addressing or presenting the risk through a cyber liability approach is probably slightly misleading. It might be more effective for people that are watching this, to brokers, to perhaps look at profiling their activities around online banking, email, portable devices, and kind of going and maybe helping account execs understand that, as opposed to just going in with an 18-page cyber application form and going, can you fill this out? And talking about cyber threats, I think is a very misleading way, not misleading, but a very ineffective way of selling the policy. If you're talking about claims that aren't relevant to them and talking about cyber liability threats that they don't feel they have an exposure to, I think you're going to really struggle. So I think that's absolutely right. And I guess so just sort of going full circle with this, I guess what you're trying to do, some of the initiatives you've got going at Henderson's, is to try to change the way that your account handlers actually raise this issue, because it's protecting your E&O, so they've got to raise it, but then perhaps through the educational activities that you're doing, they will feel more comfortable about addressing it, and perhaps presenting in a different way, and hopefully you'll feedback to at some point that you have a better experience that way.
It becomes an informed decision rather than buy this because it's the new thing we think you should buy.
Yeah, and you made a really good point that, so I started in cyber, I transitioned from technology to digital insurance probably about 6 years ago, and at that time I was trying to sell policies directly insured. It was insanely difficult, and because nothing was in the press. Because at the time the FCA were the people that were responsible with privacy fines, and then the ICO form, the Information Commissioner Office. And you're right, because they do a lot around publication and notification, and you have to be registered with them, that it really has gone from being not in the news to really frontline press a lot of the time. So I think that's really raised the awareness for the insured, as in they understand that it's a real threat, but there is still that gap between them seeing value in what you're putting on the table. And I think that's going to be when the penny really drops. We have got privacy law and regulatory framework changes coming out, that is definitely going to make it a lot harder to, or more costly in the event that a breach occurs. But I think that's the real gap, that the actual consumer of the product at the minute still doesn't always feel, or certainly the everyday business, to which you would have thousands of within your organisation, the amount that actually buy cyber is probably still very small.
Very small.
Yeah, because the word cyber to most businesses implies that they're heavily reliant on selling products online, therefore, and if they're not, they don't feel that their digital risk exposure needs to be addressed. And one thing we do a lot of here is we certainly we talk more about digital risk than we do about cyber threats.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good tip from this little conversation, this sort of fireside chat that we're having now, to a takeaway for you guys who are watching this, to maybe try really profiling the business, getting your account handlers to talk about the risks as opposed to the threats, and hopefully having a better experience with the insured and ultimately the risk themselves.
And I mean, again, the term cyber, as you mentioned, is thrown around a lot, and that does, again, sometimes put people off when they don't see themselves as again, using the term technology business, but generally a cyber liability or data policy, it covers data. Which extends to include paper records.
Yeah.
So and even so much as leaving a laptop on a train or in a taxi, or putting a file in a bin instead of a confidential waste, is potentially data breach, and therefore that would be classed as a.
And I think here's the other massive point that most SME, even sort of mid-sized UK businesses, will outsource these responsibilities.
Yeah.
So they're the point of consumption. They're the one that's registered with the ICO, but they use third parties for handling that data, for putting the data into a cloud, getting rid of even the shredding of sensitive documentation. So the risk is usually out of their hands, but it's a very very real risk, and they will be on the hook. They will be responsible if something happens to that. And you're absolutely right that. Understanding that piece I think has been I think that, and kind of some of the business interruption scenarios that we've seen has been the biggest increase in claims that we're seeing, certainly data, and that's only going to get worse with the new regulatory framework comes into play. But I think also that going back to the profiling comment, that we've seen such an increase in social engineering, and you'll find, I would have thought that you don't have an insured that doesn't, you may do, but you won't have many that don't do online banking or use email.
Absolutely,
right, and all have social engineering and malware and ransomware and phishing attack. They're all susceptible to that, and that's all covered within a digital risk insurance policy, as opposed to, but necessarily they might think that they don't have a cyber threat.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting piece that brokers can have a lot more traction if they kind of identify what risks span out of their activities. Like, do you have email? Yes. Well, then these are what cyber policy could help you mitigate. Good. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up. It was just a really quick chat. I mean, Mark's swinging by. He's down here for a conference, so it's good just to get him onto the channel. Hope you're well, and we'll catch up in the next episode.
Thank you.